Hey, welcome back to the Philosophy Behind Tolkien YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about how songs shape the person. Last time we were talking about the same issue in Tolkien and why songs are so important, and why are songs important for Tolkien as opposed to other things, and why is music important at all? It seems like it could be just a decoration which you could just do without it and it wouldn't make much difference. Isn't the story more important than the music? But for Tolkien, story and music go together. And the story is perhaps the most important thing, but stories are most powerful when they're encased and embedded in art and ritual. And that means the story can be in a song, so it's got music. It can have an event with a bunch of people gathered together with special lighting and special atmosphere and clothing and a kind of solemnity. So for example, in the Jewish tradition, there's a Passover ritual, which is a moment when they tell stories. And it's not just any story, it's the story of who they are as a people, the Jewish people. And so, for example, they tell the story of how God saved the Jewish people at the Passover. And on that day, each year, Jews typically will gather and will read the stories, read the Bible, and then relive it. They'll have unleavened bread, and they'll relive the experience that their ancestors lived thousands of years ago when they were escaping from slavery with the Egyptians. So there's story, there's ritual, there's music, and this is all shaping who they are as a people. So when young Jews go through that, they understand, oh, this is who I am. And this event that happened thousands of years ago, that's my event. That's who I am. That's where I come from. That's where I'm going. So with Tolkien, in the Hobbit, when Bilbo is asked to go on an adventure and join the dwarves on their adventure, he doesn't want to go. It's not his story. It's not his people. Why should he participate in this scary and dangerous thing where they're going to fight a dragon? And at first he doesn't want to go. But then he hears the song, and there's a ritual, and they're having a meal. They have this beautiful meal. It's in Bilbo's house, Bag End. And Gandalf's there, and the dwarves are there. And as the dwarves get out their instruments and start singing the song, and the lights are going down, and the fire is low, and it's dark, Bilbo hears this song, which is full of a story, but it's ritualized, and it really moves him. So Thorin says, now for some music. They play the music, they have harps, other instruments. The dark came into the room from the little window that opened in the side of the hill. The firelight flickered, it was April, and still they played on, while the shadow of Gandalf's beard wagged against the wall. And dark fills all the room, so there's this kind of atmosphere, there's this gathering, there's this meal, there's this friendship going on, and then they sing the song. You perhaps heard it. I'm not going to sing it. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day to seek the pale enchanted gold. And so they tell the story of going back to their homeland to regain the lost gold that has been stolen from their forefathers and foremothers. And so after the song, Tolkien writes this: as they sang, the Hobbit felt the love of the beautiful things made by hands and by cunning and by magic moving through him, a fierce and a jealous love, the desire of the hearts of dwarves. Then something Tookish woke up inside him, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves, and wear a sword instead of a walking stick. So Bilbo's moved. His heart is engaged, and he really wants to go. He wants to experience what this song is communicating. He felt the love of beautiful things made by hands and by cunning and by magic moving through him. A fierce and a jealous love. He has this intense love of this story and of this people, and he becomes one of them, and he becomes not just a kind of homebody hobbit, but he becomes a soldier. He wants to wear a sword. He wants to actually get into battle where he could kill somebody and he could get killed. It's a different kind of personality altogether. And so in these stories, in The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to end with the Silmarillion, which is right here. We have songs that shape the person. And the biggest song, of course, is the song of God, of Iluvatar. And in the Silmarillion, Tolkien retells the story of the creation of the world. And it's pretty close to the biblical account and other similar accounts. It has other elements too of mythic character from like the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, where it's not just God, but there's these sort of demigods and angelic beings called the Ainur. And so here's how God creates the world. And he spoke to them, the Ainur, propounding to them themes of music, and they sang before him, and he was glad. But for a long while they sang only each alone, or but few together, while the rest hearkened. So he sends the song out first, and then they pick up the song, the angelic beings, the Ainur. And then Iluvatar says to them, of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now, that ye make in harmony together a great music. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices, if he will. So he gives them the ability to continue the creation, these angelic beings. And of course, one of the angelic beings, like Satan, wants to make his own music, and does so, and kind of tries to wrest the song away from God and from the other angels. This is Melkor. So Melkor creates discord. He wants to kind of dominate the music himself with his own will, not to harmonize with the others. And it doesn't work. God ultimately is still the winner. Here's how it's described. The other had now achieved a unity of its own, but it was loud and vain and endlessly repeated. And it had little harmony, but rather a clamorous unison as of many trumpets braying upon a few notes. And it essayed to drown the other music by the violence of its voice. But it seemed that its most triumphant notes were taken by the other and woven into its own solemn pattern. So even this effort to create its own separate music gets incorporated by Iluvatar, by God, into the music of his own. God is the creator of everything, and God has created the world good, and even the evil that exists in the world that turns away from God, Iluvatar, weaves into the beauty of his own creation, which is a mystery which we'll talk about. Like how does evil work, and what's its relation to God or the divine? So we'll end there, and next time we'll pick it up more about the music.